They say the last call matters most. For me, it's the call I didn't take, the one I sent to voicemail without even looking. It wasn't the first time I ignored my mother, but it was the last. The nurse said she reached for the phone with trembling hands, begged them to dial my number. When I didn't answer, she smiled softly and whispered, "I understand," but I didn't. Not until it was too late. My name is Harold Reeves. I'm 64 years old, and I'm living with stage 4 COPD and diabetic neuropathy that's robbed me of the strength in my legs. Most days I shuffle through the hours in my wheelchair, watching time stretch and snap like rubber bands. There are moments I can breathe and others where every inhale feels like punishment. But no pain compares to the ache that began when I refused to answer that call. It came too late for someone like me. I had just gotten into bed, my oxygen tubes adjusted, TV playing reruns. The phone buzzed. I saw her name, Mom. 3 simple letters that once meant comfort, then regret, then resentment. I looked at it. Let it ring. "Let her leave a message," I muttered. She didn't. The nurse called me the next morning, her voice shaking. "Mr. Reeves, your mother passed last night. She asked for you." I didn't cry. Not at first. Instead, I hung up and sat in silence, staring at the blinking voicemail icon. I didn't check it. I couldn't. Something in me already knew whatever she wanted to say, it was gone. You'd think this would have crushed me instantly. But bitterness has a strange way of shielding you, like armor made from old wounds. I told myself she had it coming after what she did, after the way she left Dad, after she kicked me out when I was 17 with nothing but a trash bag and a suitcase full of questions. But that armor cracked the moment I wheeled into her funeral, saw the closed casket, the empty seat where I should have been the night before. I noticed the nurse right away, a woman maybe in her 30s with tired eyes and a badge that read L. Callahan, RN. She walked over to me after the service, kneeling beside my chair. "She wanted you to know something," she whispered. "Your mother said, 'Tell him I forgave him a long time ago. Tell him he doesn't know the whole story.'" I blinked, confused. "Forgave me? I thought she hated me." The nurse shook her head. "She loved you, Mr. Reeves. I was there for the last 2 weeks. She talked about you every day. You should come back. There's something in her room. She left it for you." And with that, the wall I'd built for 4 decades began to crack. The ride back to the hospital felt like being dragged through memory by the throat. Every hallway echoed with the beeps of machines and quiet sobs of families, sounds I'd come to know far too well over the past year since my own diagnosis. But this was different. I wasn't the patient this time. I was the ghost chasing something already gone. The nurse, L. Callahan, led me down the corridor to room 207. It smelled like bleach and lavender air freshener. I'd never been there when my mother was alive, not since she was admitted. The guilt coiled in my chest, squeezing tight, but I still told myself she deserved it. After all, she abandoned me long before I abandoned her. "You can take your time," the nurse said, unlocking a small drawer beneath the window. Inside was a box, aged wooden, with a cracked brass latch. She handed it to me and stepped outside. My hands trembled. My fingers were numb from the neuropathy, but I managed to open it. Inside were dozens of letters, all addressed to me. One for every birthday, every Christmas, every Father's Day. Envelopes marked for when you turn 21. For your first child, if you ever feel like I gave up on you. My vision blurred. The first one I opened was dated June 12, 1980, the day after she kicked me out. Her handwriting was instantly familiar, looping slightly shaky always with too many exclamation points. Harold, I know what I did tonight will haunt me forever. But I want you to know I didn't do it because I hated you. I did it because I couldn't protect you anymore. You reminded me so much of your father, and he nearly destroyed us both. I thought I was doing the right thing. I was wrong. I dropped the letter into my lap and stared at the window. My mouth was dry. My thoughts were racing, crashing. She wasn't angry. She was afraid of me or of him. I opened another. Harold, if you're reading this, I hope you have a child of your own. I hope you understand what it means to feel helpless. I wasn't strong enough to protect you the way you deserved. I wish I'd told you more about your father, about the things he did, about the nights I locked myself in the bathroom with you praying he wouldn't come home drunk. A cold wave of nausea hit me. I'd always believed she left my father because she was selfish, but now I wasn't so sure. What else hadn't she told me? My hands hovered over the next envelope. It was labeled, "If you ever hear I called and you didn't answer." I couldn't breathe. That was the letter she'd written for this exact moment. The one she must have known I'd someday find. I stared at it for minutes, afraid, ashamed, desperate. And then finally I tore it open. If you ever hear I called and you didn't answer, that was how it began. The letter was written in blue ink, slightly smudged like she'd been crying while writing it. As I unfolded it, the paper creaked like old bones, fragile, like the woman I had refused to visit. My eyes scanned the words, and with each sentence my heart cracked open in places I didn't know were still wounded. Harold, I don't blame you for not answering. If I were you, maybe I wouldn't have picked up either. I hurt you. I know that. But I want you to know the truth. The truth I couldn't say over the phone or even when I saw you last at your father's funeral. I stopped reading for a moment, staring blankly at the room. My father's funeral. The last time we spoke. She tried to sit next to me, but I moved my wheelchair 2 feet away without looking at her. I thought I was punishing her. In truth, I was punishing myself. Your father was not the man you remember. He was violent Harold. Charming to the world, but cruel behind closed doors. I covered the bruises with makeup, made excuses to the neighbors. But when he started turning that rage on you, I knew I had to get you away, even if it meant you'd hate me for it. I told you to leave because I didn't think I could keep you safe if you stayed. I told you I didn't love you, hoping you'd never come back to that house. Tears streamed down my face. I wasn't a man who cried not at diagnosis, not even when I lost the ability to walk without pain. But that letter shattered something old and rotten inside me. I've watched you from afar. I celebrated your promotions. I wept when I heard about your divorce. I prayed when you got sick. I called because I knew I was going soon and I didn't want to die without telling you that I love you. I always have. Always will. I folded the letter slowly, clutching it to my chest. It wasn't just words, it was her last breath reaching across time. She didn't call to ask for forgiveness. She called to give it. A knock on the door startled me. It was the nurse again, holding something behind her back. I forgot, she said gently. She asked me to give you this, too. She handed me a small photo frame, an old faded picture of me as a boy on a carousel grinning. Standing behind me was my mother, younger, thinner, with her hands on my shoulders smiling like she had the whole world in her arms. On the back, in her handwriting, the day I knew I'd do anything to protect you. My breath caught. My anger, so righteous for decades, melted into something unbearable regret. I had spent half a lifetime punishing her for trying to save me. The days after I left the hospital blurred into a fog of silence. I sat in my room oxygen machine, humming beside me, that box of letters on my lap like a beating heart. Each envelope was a key, and every word inside unlocked something buried. I opened another letter, this one labeled, "For When You Feel Alone, Harold." There will come a day when your strength fails you, when your body feels like it's folding in on itself. If that day has come, I need you to know you are not alone. I see you. I feel you. And I'm sorry I can't be there holding your hand. But I'm still with you. You were never a mistake, not for 1 second. I pressed the letter to my lips, breathing in paper and ink and the ghost of a woman I thought I had buried long ago. The pain I'd held on to all these years, it wasn't just grief. It was love that never had a place to land. As the week went on, I couldn't stop reading. One letter led to another like chapters in a book I didn't know I'd been living in. But the one I couldn't stop thinking about was labeled "The Truth About Your Father." I opened it with trembling hands. Harold. There's something I've never told anyone, not even the police. Your father had another family, a woman in another state. I found out 2 years before I sent you away. When I confronted him, he threatened to hurt you. That's why I pushed you out, why I made it look like you were the one in the wrong. I thought if he saw you leave angry, he'd let you go. And he did. But it cost me everything. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I lived in fear for years. But the moment you left, he changed. Quieter, colder, and then one day he vanished. I never saw him again. But I never stopped watching for him either, always afraid he'd return. You were my light, Harold, the only good thing that came from those years. I sat back in my wheelchair, staring at the ceiling. My father, the man I idolized in memory, had been a monster. And my mother, she'd endured hell in silence to protect me. Suddenly, I needed to see her grave. It took me 2 days to gather the strength to call the paratransit service and ask my home nurse to help me dress. She hesitated. "You sure?" she asked. I nodded. My chest burned with each breath, but it wasn't just illness, it was urgency, a need I could no longer deny. We drove through the cemetery gates just after noon. The air smelled like dry grass and sunlight. I rolled slowly along the path until I found her stone. Simple, gray. It read, "Margaret Reeves, 1942-2023. She loved loudest in silence." I stared at that inscription, tears flooding my vision. And, for the first time in decades, I whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom. And I love you too." I stayed at her grave longer than I planned, longer than my nurse advised. My chest hurt. My fingers were numb again and the breeze was biting. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. I needed to tell her everything. The things I should have said when she was alive. The things I thought I'd never say at all. "I hated you," I said aloud, my voice cracking. "I hated you for not being who I needed. But you were. You were exactly who I needed, you just weren't allowed to show it." The words spilled like blood from a wound. "I thought you pushed me out to punish me. But you were saving me. And I spent 40 years angry at a lie I told myself because it was easier than facing the truth." I choked back a sob. "You were brave. I wasn't." I pulled out one last letter I'd brought from the box. It was unopened, marked in fresh ink, different handwriting. It said simply, "From Nurse L. Callahan, for Harold." With shaky hands I opened it. "Mr. Reeves. Your mother asked me to write this for her when she could no longer hold a pen. These are her final words to you, dictated the night she passed." I swallowed hard, bracing myself. "My sweet boy. If you're reading this, I'm gone. But I hope you've forgiven me or are trying to. Please know, Harold, I never stopped loving you. I watched you grow from afar. I saw your photos when you made manager at the grocery store, saw the wedding announcement. I prayed for your recovery when I heard of your illness. I was always proud of you. If I could have lived again, I would have told you sooner, would have held your hand through every storm, but I did what I thought I had to keep you safe. Please don't let the pain live longer than I did. You still have time, Harold, more than I had. Love fiercely, forgive quickly, and call back. My hands dropped the letter into my lap. That last line hit like a punch in the lungs. Call back. I'd let her die without hearing my voice, but somehow she found a way to speak to me anyway. Back in the van, I sat in silence all the way home, staring out the window at the moving trees. The past 40 years unraveled like a spool of dark thread behind me and ahead. Just barely, I saw something new, the chance to begin again. Not to erase what I'd done, but to stop adding to the weight of it. Later that night, I sat by the window in my living room wrapped in a blanket. I picked up my phone and stared at the screen. My contact list was short, but one name stood out, Julie, my daughter. We hadn't spoken in years. Our last conversation ended with slamming doors and bitter words, but now I knew better. I tapped her name. The phone rang, and this time I didn't let it go to voicemail. The phone rang 4 times before I heard her voice. Hello? My throat tightened. I hadn't heard Julie's voice in nearly 5 years. Not since the night she stormed out of my house pregnant and crying after I told her she was making a mistake marrying her boyfriend. I never even saw my granddaughter. Julie, it's Dad. Silence. I could hear her breathing. Then, cautiously, what do you want? I closed my eyes and took a long, careful breath through my nose tube. I want to say I'm sorry. I was wrong. About everything. About how I treated you. About Mom. About what I've carried. Another pause. Then her voice cracked. Is everything okay? No, I said. I'm dying, Jules. I expected a cold reply, or more silence. But what I heard instead was her quiet gasp. Dad, I have a lot to tell you, I said, and I don't know how much time I've got left, but if you'll let me, I want to start over. I read Mom's letters. She wasn't who I thought, and now I'm trying not to be the man I used to be. Julie whispered, I don't know what to say. Just say you'll listen. A long pause. Then, okay. That one word hit harder than any of the letters. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was the beginning of something I never thought I'd feel again, hope. We talked for 2 hours. I told her about the box of letters, about the nurse, about the photo in the grave. She told me about my granddaughter Emma, 7 years old, loves puzzles and drawn horses. She even sent me a photo before we hung up. In the picture, Emma's smiling wide, missing 2 teeth, holding up a crayon drawing of a man in a wheelchair and a little girl holding his hand. It said, Grandpa, I can't wait to meet you. I wept. That night I sat by my bed and opened the final letter in the box. No date, just a line on the envelope, when you're ready to forgive yourself. Inside her writing was shakier, older. Forgiveness isn't a door someone else opens for you. It's a key you carry all along. I hope you find it, Harold. I hope you use it. I folded the letter and held it to my chest. For the first time in 40 years, I felt light enough to sleep. If you're holding on to anger, let this story be a warning pain grows in silence. I wasted decades carrying bitterness toward a woman who was only trying to protect me. I punished her for her silence, not knowing she had filled hundreds of pages trying to speak. Don't wait for a funeral to discover the truth. Don't let your pride be louder than your compassion. We only get so many chances to answer when love calls. Don't let the final ring be one you ignore. Call back. Write the letter. Say the words. Even if your voice shakes, say them. Forgiveness doesn't make the past disappear, but it gives the future room to grow. And if you're lucky, someone like Julie, like Emma, might still be there, waiting to forgive you too.